December 1948, you have been invited as dinner guests to the home of Eleanor Roosevelt called Val Kill, located in Hyde Park, New York. Eleanor has just returned from Paris, where the Declaration of Human Rights was passed at the United Nations. She served on the drafting committee, serving as chairperson for 2 years out of 3. Eleanor has invited friends, colleagues, and family to gather at her home to celebrate victory for her.
Oh, Marge, it is snowing out there. Well, I see that a lot of people have come, and thank you very much for the dinner and all you've done. I want you to sit for a minute, have a cup of coffee, and then please go back in the kitchen and check what's going on in there.
Okay.
Because I actually just came from the kitchen, as you see. I've been enlisted to help because one of the people who was supposed to be coming to help Marge cannot get here. So, treasured friends, relatives, and neighbors. I see some of my neighbors. You got here in this bad weather? Did you walk down? Oh my goodness, it must be 10 inches at this point. Well, and I see some of my family members here and some fellow news hounds. Thank you so much for coming at short notice to help me celebrate the victory of the United Nations, where they have passed the Declaration of Human Rights. I hope that you have enjoyed your dinner, served by my invaluable cook Marge. I see that she made my favorite dessert, angels on pink clouds on angels. I have barely unpacked, as you see. I would never greet guests without unpacking, but Marge couldn't even help me. So I hope you didn't mind being served buffet in the dining room and finding a comfortable chair and table in the living room to sit. Now, I haven't been able to go around to too many people, but I see you are enjoying yourselves and was able to talk to a few people. I will get to talk to you later. Now, when most of you, many of you, I have not seen since I left the White House, and I am thankful for all the correspondence, the letters, the calls, the telegrams, the visits, to see if I was okay. Is the coffee hot? Very hot. Okay, I know Marge probably did a really good job. Did we have chicken tonight? Yes, we had chicken. She is a stellar chicken maker. I have to say, a cook, and she knows I have trouble keeping cooks. Well, where was I? Yes. Most of you know that when Franklin died, I told you the story wasn't over. I was going to pack a few things, valuables, a few photographs, personal items, bring them up here to Val Hill, to my precious Val Hill. By the way, named for Valley Stream, in case some of you were wondering, Dutch for Valley Stream. And I was going to lead a very quiet life. Well, not too much time passed, and you know that I was very unsatisfied. I was not going to sit by the fire and let time go by, and I remembered all the important causes: human rights, women's rights, education for all, and above all, self-worth. It became important to me to use my influence I had had as First Lady to continue these causes. Well, I'm a bit like my Uncle Theodore in that way. I was not going to sit by the fireplace and let time go by. He said, if you are not going to do anything meaningful with your life, life is worth nothing. So I listened to him. my Greenwich Village apartment. "Mrs. Roosevelt," he said, "is there anything I can do for you?" I looked at him and said, "Well, I want to ask you a question. Is there anything I can do for you? As you are the one who's in trouble now." That little conversation changed what was once a very wary political relationship to what I considered would turn into a lifelong friendship. Now, I know that most of you have come here to hear about my time at the United Nations, but if you would permit me, I would like to first tell you about my precious Val Kill. Now, I see, as I said, that many of you have not been here yet, or might have not been here in a long time. And as I look around, I see reporters from when I was at the White House. I also see somebody who wrote that marvelous article in March, but I will get to you for a moment, in Life magazine, when I was voted the most popular woman, or the most well-loved woman in America. I wrote that Life magazine. That was you, sir, wasn't it? You wrote that fabulous Life magazine article last March, of which there were 10 women who were voted most well-loved. And this was my third or fourth time. But I don't like to boast, but that was a wonderful piece. And I'm so glad did you come up from Manhattan?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you made it. You probably got the last train.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so let me tell you a little bit about my precious Val Kill, as some of you have never been here before. And as things do happen at this time of year, we are having a blizzard outside. Now, I wanted to invite you all into what I call the front door at the back of the house, because that is the special place, the back door, where all my important people come. But Marge, it hasn't been shoveled yet. I don't even know if they will get here. So I'm sorry that I wasn't able to invite you into my favorite entrance. But as things happen, it's probably 15 degrees on Fahrenheit. And I know that before we finish with our after-dinner drinks, and I talk to you a little bit about the UN, that we'll have another 5 inches. So I don't think anyone will be leaving tonight. We'll talk about that later on. We have to make sure we have plenty of brandy on hand and plenty of eggs for breakfast. But we'll talk about that a little later. So, you must promise me that you will come back in the spring when the flowers are in bloom, my rose garden is in bloom, my beautiful herb garden, and we can have dinner again. Will you promise me?
Yes.
Now, I cannot take credit for Val Kill. It was Franklin's big idea. Now, it was about 1924, and Franklin and I loved picnics. In fact, it was the month of August, and Franklin and I came about 2 miles east of the family home Springwood to have a glorious picnic. Now, on this day, my friends Nancy and Marion were with us. They were lamenting that this would be the last picnic of the summer, as Sarah would be shutting the family home. Franklin said, "No need to worry." He was a very good problem solver. "No need to worry. I will build you a cottage, and you'll have a place to go with your friends, and you can have your time all year long to have your private time." I must have looked at him very strange, because this was his answer. "Silly girls, this money is mine, and this land is mine, and if I want to build a place here, I will do it. It doesn't belong to my mother." Well, I knew that that was the time that I needed to stop asking. Franklin hired an architect and built what he called the shack, a beautiful little that became my precious daughter. Another story. Any questions about, let's talk a little bit about my time at the United Nations. I know some of you probably want to get home, but I don't think that's happening. Yes, hi, my neighbor from down the road. How are you? I haven't seen you in months, but of course I was in Paris.
I'm very well, Mrs. Roosevelt. It's lovely to see you back.
It's so lovely. Tell me your name again, because I forget when I go to Europe and the time change. You see, I haven't even unpacked yet. Marguerite, yes, Marguerite. I met you at first in the library, I think, in town. That was so many years ago. And you haven't heard much about how I got to go.
To the United Nations?
Yeah.
Yes, Mrs. Roosevelt. I have limited knowledge of how you came to be chair of the committee. How did that get started?
Oh, yes. Well, I would love to tell you the story. It was about December 1945, a very cold winter day. Now, if you were down in New York, you would have been invited, Marguerite, but I had some of my friends over at my Greenwich Village apartment. Now, I'm looking over, I think you were there, were you not? Yeah, is it Sue? Is your name Suzanne? I remembered. I'm so excited. Well, we were sitting around in my little apartment. Do you remember? Yes, we were having lunch. And the phone rang. Hello? Oh, yes. Hello, President Truman. Oh, yes, I've been having a few ladies for lunch. Excuse me? Oh, that sounds like a very interesting offer, but I have to give you a ring back because I have some people here for lunch, and maybe you'll be able to give me some more details. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your wonderful card that you sent. All right. Have a nice afternoon, sir. Well, I was surprised enough, weren't you, that I got a call, Suzanne, from Harry Truman. But what I was more surprised with, he asked me if I would go to the United Nations. They were going to be forming a new United Nations in London, and he wanted to know if I would go as one of the delegates. Well, first I thought about it. I don't have any foreign policy experience. And I said that to my friends. I said, that was President Truman. You know that my husband, Franklin, valued the four freedoms. It was his goal, as when the war ended, that they would create an organization of all the nations that were involved, so this would never happen again. Well, you know, because of divine intervention, he was not able to attend. And this put me in the position of being asked. But I had no foreign policy experience. I said to my friends, what would I do? Well, one of my friends said, President Truman doesn't have any foreign policy experience either, so I think you'll be okay. Another one of my friends said, you know how much the children and the grandchildren are worrying about you, Eleanor. They think you are depressed, and they think you won't be making any inroads anymore. Well, I told them I would think about it. Of course, I did call him back, and I told him that I would do it, because I thought to myself, Anna Eleanor Roosevelt, you must do the thing you think you cannot do, as I prepared to go to London. Yes, I'll tell you more about that later, but was that okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, and on New Year's Eve, that very same month, we boarded the Queen Elizabeth for London. Any other questions? Oh, yes, from you, or I think, from wrote an amazing article about my new victory garden that I planted at the White House. Do you know how many millions of people planted gardens because of your article?
No.
Yes. Is it Patricia? I haven't seen you since I left Washington, but how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
But there are still some people planting gardens, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Are you still at the magazine?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. You're a valuable employee.
But when you first arrived in London and traveled around a bit, what did you witness that was left of the war torn Europe?
Well, Patricia, this was a very difficult thing because you know that all during the war I had visited soldiers, traveled everywhere. I even was very involved with the Red Cross and went very close to the front lines. I don't know how I got that brave. But this was almost worse. It was so unimaginable. When are we going to try to avoid tragedy rather than avenge it? I was most concerned with the refugees and the young children, the orphans. And I did get to do some work on that because when I got to the United Nations, they put me on a very sensitive committee, committee number 3, which would be in charge of the refugees from the war. But I'm going to write a little bit more about that in my day, and I welcome you to call me, and we can talk at length about my experience there for the magazine. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mrs. Roosevelt, what was it like to be the first woman at the meeting?
Well, James, I'm so glad you're here because that article in March that you wrote in Red Book was just fantastic. We are in the company of someone very, very, very well known and very respected in the newspaper and business. So you were asking what it was like to be the first woman at the convention. Yes, indeed. Well, as you can imagine, James, it was not easy. I was met with a lot of resistance. But I knew from many other places where I was the first woman, that I would have to work hard and be doggedly persistent and do my homework and be prepared and have a good sense of humor. And that's what I did. So they must have enjoyed my style because they asked me, after a while, to chair the newly formed committee that would draft the Declaration of Human Rights. And I was the chair for 2 years. The third year, I gave the job to someone else so that we could have a different perspective. But thank you for that question. Yes, it was quite difficult being the first woman. But, you know, I enjoy making waves. So that part of it was pretty okay. Any other questions? Oh, yes, my friend from New York, you came up. Suzanne, did you know she was here? Did you travel together on the train?
No, you can see that.
From Greenwich Village, correct? And we met, a long time ago. I think you were a neighbor of mine, and then I knew you a few times. How are you doing?
I'm well.
How was the trip up?
Fun.
Fun, but the snow hadn't taken over then. Well, I think that you took one of the last trains. I'm surprised you didn't run into Suzanne. Yeah, so what is your question?
What was the most challenging part of heading that committee?
Pam, correct? Renee, my mom.
It's quite a ride.
So, Renee, on my way home, I anticipated that I would probably get a question like that. Can you repeat that again, please? I remember most of it, but
What was the most challenging part of heading the committee to create the Universal Declaration of Human Rights?
on my way home, I began taking I anticipated that question, being that was going to have a lot of professionals here, and friends and family members who were very worried. So I wrote a little something for the My Day column. Will you let me know, Renee, if it sounds good?
I will.
Okay. Members of the commission included representatives from Lebanon, France, India, China, Canada, and the Soviet Union. Coming from countries with fundamental differences in their political and economic systems, they often disagreed about which rights could be included and which were most important. It was at these times when I used my experience working with a diverse group of people. I overheard one of the committee members saying the following about me. Eleanor's sheer force of personality contributed greatly to the successful outcome. He told his fellow committee member that I worked very hard, but had a good combination of warmth and charm, and I was doggedly persistent. I can't imagine where you got that last comment from. How does that sound? I will include that in my day column. Now, I think that something happened to the record player. Why would the record just go on without me turning it on? Oh, and I think Marge is probably in the kitchen. Any other questions? Well, I think you probably all want to know when information is going to be in the My Day column. Are you curious? Yes. I thought maybe someone would ask that question, but I guess everyone forgot. I didn't. So, it winds up that because of the weather, I told you I started, but it seems to me that I originally thought I would come home, I would unpack, I would have time to entertain my guests, I would say a very fond farewell to most of you after dinner was over and we had a chance to have a little after dinner drink, and then tomorrow morning I could get up and work on the column. But I don't think that's going to be the case, because all of a sudden I'm going to have 30 or 40 overnight guests. So I'm thinking that probably next week it will appear in the column. I wanted to really be a very honest and information-rich portrayal of what happened to me there. So, I think I'm going to go into the kitchen because I think Fala has gotten lost. And Marge, I'm going to go look and see where Fala is. Do you think you could see if we have enough coffee?
Yes.
All right, I will be back. Decided not to. So, hi everybody, I'm Carol. Thanks for playing along and for enjoying. And now that I can talk to you as myself, thank you very much for being patient. I can't believe I actually started only 25 minutes late, which is pretty good. And I didn't get a chance at the cake, so I will have a piece when I'm done.
Yes.
And thank you all for coming, and thank you for the people who played along and gave me the questions. So it was my great pleasure to introduce a little bit of Eleanor Roosevelt to you, because she is my hero. And, did we want to, we did turn the lights out? Okay. So she is my hero, and you might ask yourself what a hero is, and it's a person that you look up to, like I was looking up to this woman, this statue in Manhattan, on 73rd Street. Let's see if I can make it a little darker. Thank goodness we have sun. Is that a little better? And she's a person who I go by her quotes and her Cape Cod artist, and the wax version of the statue is in the Cape Cod Museum in Dennis. So I went to see that a few weeks ago. So Eleanor was a person of many, many talents, and as I said, her words, her deeds were something that everyone I meet says, I loved Eleanor Roosevelt, or I met Eleanor Roosevelt, or the other night I was talking to somebody about it, and I was talking about some of the lessons I learned from Eleanor Roosevelt, and he said, I think it's about time that America gets reintroduced to Eleanor Roosevelt, meaning young people, students alike. So here's a really beautiful painting of her, and if you can see in the lower corner here, she's knitting. And of course I have knitting in the suitcase, and she went nowhere without her knitting. Even at the UN, she would knit underneath the table while they were debating. And at the last place I did Eleanor Roosevelt last week, a woman came up to me afterwards. It was in Mattapoisett, and I was right next to Fairhaven where the Delano house is. So she said, I'm related to Eleanor Roosevelt, and I have the mitten pattern. Because she used to make 1 million mittens and socks for the soldiers, for everybody. So she told me where to find it online, and so you can get Eleanor Roosevelt's mitten pattern. So she loved to knit. So, a few quotes that I start every day with of hers, or you must do the thing you think you cannot do, and that's part of my little being her, because that is a very, very important quote. In fact, she did say that to herself right before she boarded the Queen Elizabeth for London in 1945, or it might have been New Year's Day, 1946. I think it was New Year's Eve. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent, and I'll talk a little bit more about that one in a minute. And with new day comes new strengths and new thoughts. Well, I have to say, when I started this day, I was having a very nice cup of coffee, and then I got into my car extra early to come from Norton, which was about 70 miles, and I'm riding along in the pouring rain, and all of a sudden I hear a crash. Well, a huge piece of metal went underneath my car, and wham, flat tire, and I've been told several people behind me the same thing happened to them. So I had a real challenging day getting up here, but here we are. Everyone's smiling. Now I gotta figure out what to do with the donut when I leave on my car. So with each day comes new strength and new thoughts. You can often change your circumstances by changing your attitude. And this one I really love. And I have a coffee mug with this on it, and I love to start every day looking at this. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is mystery, and today is a gift. So thank you, Claire, who I've gotten to know on the phone, who is a gift to all of you and to me, and all of you, thank you for being here. What a great gift to me to see people come and smile and be enjoying Eleanor Roosevelt with me. A woman is like a tea bag. You can't tell how strong she is until you put her in hot water. One of my favorites. Anger is only one letter short of danger. This one makes me think of what Eleanor Roosevelt might say if she lived today. Really, I think it would be a great idea if some people took her advice. All right, so this is the Red Book article that I was talking about in March 1948, and here she got the most admired woman in the world, and in fact she was voted the most admired woman in the world 12 times. But at this point it was, I think, her third or fourth time, and some of the other women who were on the list. 3 times they made postage stamps for her, and this one came from an actual photograph. And a few years ago, they decided they would replace Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill. So they had a little contest. I don't know if you heard about it, but I voted for Eleanor. But Harriet Tubman won. I don't even think they're doing it though. There must have been some debate over Andrew Jackson's followers, so because I don't think they're changing it after all that. But she was one of the candidates. And really a very important quote. And you see that beautiful painting of her. But friendship is oneself is all important because without it, one cannot be friends with anyone else in the world. And you can see, I want to just point out, and if I had a little more time, I would have fixed my hair a little more, I would have had my red lipstick on, but I figured you guys didn't want to sit any longer. So, Eleanor was always very well put together and had a lot of poise, and was really, really a model for women of her time. So, this quote is really important because it was a long time before Eleanor Roosevelt became friends with herself. And the reason being is her very, very difficult beginnings. She lost both of her parents before she was 10. Her mother when she was 9, and her father, who was a severe alcoholic, when she was 10. And her father used to take her to soup kitchens to feed the poor. That gave her one of her first introductions to giving back, but he also used to leave her outside of the bar in freezing cold weather while he went in to have a drink. Now, he was Theodore Roosevelt's brother, and so Eleanor loved her Uncle Theodore, and she spent a lot of time with him on Oyster Bay, Long Island, where he had Sagamore Hill, his home. But also, they lived 20 blocks away from each other in Manhattan. And of course, Theodore Roosevelt's daughter Alice was very close friends, at least when they were young, with Eleanor. But when Eleanor was about 15 or 16, they sent her to London to Allenswood Academy, where she met Madame Marie Silvestri, and that's who changed her life. Madame Silvestri took her under her wing, took her all over Europe, where she learned several languages, and prepared her for coming back to the United States to go to her coming out ball as a debutante. But, as I said, Eleanor from very, very first cared for others and helped others. And very interestingly, in 1903, she was one of the first members of the Junior League in New York, their first chapter. That is where she started her career, her lifelong career, as an activist and as a person to help the less fortunate. And she worked at that time in one of the settlement houses, teaching young women how to dance and keep, care of themselves. She, of course, in her fur hat, was visiting soup kitchens, and here she isn't that young anymore. So, do what you feel in your heart to be right. You'll be criticized anyway. You'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't. Now, of course, we know that that is a quote that has many, many stories. In fact, I am working on a little book, and it's going to be lessons from Eleanor. And one of the lessons is this, because Eleanor Roosevelt, in I think it was, forget the date, I don't want to bottle my notes right now. Marian Anderson was going to be singing at the White House. And, no, not at the White House, at a building that the Daughters of the American Revolution had in Washington. And they decided that they didn't want Marian Anderson there because she was not a white person. So from way back in the 1920s, an advocate of civil rights. In fact, what I meant to tell you as Eleanor is that when President Truman asked Eleanor if she would go to the United Nations, the Senate had to approve it. So her just saying I'll go was not enough. So they voted on it, and some people who voted were pretty resistant. But there was one senator from Mississippi, I've forgotten his name because I don't want to remember it, who actually voted against her. He didn't like the fact that she was very progressive for civil rights and actually voted against her going. So the last time I did Eleanor a couple weeks ago was for, as I said, the Mattapoisett Library, and they were doing a one-town read on the muralist. Has anyone read it? Okay, so it's a book about the WPA Arts Project, the New Deal, and of which Eleanor Roosevelt was very involved, and it's a novel. In fact, right now as we speak, the author of the book, B.A. Shapiro, who also wrote The Art Forger, is at the library. But I'm here. So, in any event, they had several different activities, and one of the things was to ask me to come into Eleanor Roosevelt. So, I read the book, but then I did some more investigation on Eleanor's role in the WPA Arts Project. She was very, very involved, and she actually bought some of the artwork for her house from some of the painters, and people like Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner were involved in that. And also as a result, remember I told you that Franklin built a cottage for Eleanor and her friends. Well, her friends Mary and Nancy moved into the cottage, and then they started Valkill Industries in 1926, of which they produced high-quality colonial reproduction furniture and then eventually pewterware. And this was all part of that arts initiative. Unfortunately, the factory closed down in the early 1930s, but this was part of their initiative to be part of the WPA. So Eleanor was everywhere. She has lots of nicknames. A woman in perpetual motion, First Lady of the World, Eleanor everywhere. It's a perfect name for her. This is her suitcase, which is in the Presidential Library at Valkill at Hyde Park. And here's an ad. She loved to do advertisements and radio broadcasts, and she even did an advertisement for margarine at one point when margarine was very unpopular to help pay the bills. Because you know what? She got paid $12,000 a year to be a UN representative, but her pension was very small, and she really had very little money to live, which is very hard to believe. Because Springwood, the big house, was given to the National Park Service. So, in fact, it was headline news when Eleanor was home in the White House. One year as First Lady, she traveled over 44,000 miles. And as I said, she went all over the South Pacific, 125,000 miles one year. And here's, I attempted to reproduce her suitcase up in the front, but I don't think you can reproduce anything of Eleanor's. So here she is with her fox head fur, and that's probably one question I would ask her if I could meet her in person. Why? I know it was in style, but it seems to go against most of the things she would believe in. Of course, she never was anywhere without her pearls, and either would have I been if I had had more time to dress. There's somewhere in my suitcase. Knitting, sensible shoes, and of course her passport, etc. Here she is in New Zealand on one of her trips to the South Pacific. Here she is at Gandhi's spinning wheel in coal mines in Pennsylvania. And I want to talk about Pennsylvania for a minute, because another important thing that I've learned recently about her is about Arthur Dale. Is anyone familiar?
What did you say?
Arthur Dale.
Arthur Dale?
So Arthur Dale was a housing development that was built in West Virginia in the 1950s for coal miners and people out of work. And it was one of the first of its kind. And people who lived there had went on to live very, very successful lives.
Wow.
And I actually heard a very, very well-known children's author talk about it at the Massachusetts Reading Conference a few weeks ago. He grew up in Arthurdale, so it was in West Virginia. Very, very interesting. So Eleanor Roosevelt never stopped traveling and trying to promote peace. This is a photo of her in the last year of her life on her 4th trip to Israel in 1960, trying to promote peace. So Eleanor on her own. And one of the reasons when I decided to portray Eleanor Roosevelt, I decided that many people do Eleanor Roosevelt in the furs and the pearls, and she's first lady and the funny voice and coming in and really making everybody laugh. But I decided that the time on her own, after she lost Franklin, was important for me to talk to you about. Because for her, it was the time when she felt she saw her greatest accomplishments. In fact, her greatest accomplishment was the Declaration of Human Rights, which just passed its 70th anniversary. So here she is at the funeral. You might recognize some famous people nearby. Here she is with her daughter. And she did wonder what she was going to do. And she did pack a few things and go up to Valkill to live. And President Truman and Bess could not believe how quickly she packed. And when she was out of the White House within a week, she didn't want to stay there. So here we are at Valkill, as I said, 2 miles east of the family home Springwood, which obviously belonged to her mother-in-law. And this is the stone cottage that Franklin built for them in 1926. And of course, the Valley Stream nearby. She spent her time during these first years after actually, really until she died, in 2 places, in Valkill and in New York City, her home, where she was born and spent a lot of her young life when Franklin Roosevelt was a politician in New York, and where she was a high school history teacher. So this is one of her apartments in Greenwich Village. And as I told you, she had a lot of guests visiting her, and her time at the UN came about, as somebody had asked me a question, because of a result of Franklin Roosevelt's 4 freedoms. And so off she was going to London. And of course, this is the visualization of Norman Rockwell's 4 freedoms. And as I told you, on December 31st, 1945, Eleanor Roosevelt boarded the Queen Elizabeth for her time to go to London. Now, Eleanor very rarely came out of the cabin, except to eat and take a walk around deck, because she was going to be totally prepared. And as I said, when someone asked me, she knew she was going to have a lot of resistance, not only because she was a woman, but because of the cultural aspect of what was going on. Remember, I said Russia, China, Lebanon on her team. And so she studied and studied and studied. She had a bursting briefcase coming on, but she said to herself, I must do the thing I cannot do. So, as far as the United Nations goes, the first couple of years that they worked fun slides, and Eleanor again. This was her speech, at the beginning of her speech when the Declaration got passed. Where, after all, do human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. And that really, brings me to think about every time I visit a library, a historical society, a women's group, whatever. We can do so much in our own small community, and how important that is. So here she is as chairman, or chairperson, as we would say. And here they are in Paris on the day that the Declaration of Human Rights was passed. And here she is at the UN in Paris, giving her speech, her acceptance speech. Oops, sorry. So when I met you, I introduced you to Val Kill a little bit and welcomed you to my home where it was snowing. But here it is in the beautiful weather. And this is what she had to say from the very beginning. This is where she really found herself and where she grew as an individual. And it was really at Val Kill where she had her first home, her first real home. As I told you, she was orphaned by the time she was 10. Then she went to live with her very cold and mean grandmother in a brownstone in New York, and upstate in equally as uncomfortable home. Then she went to London, came back, met Franklin, married him, moved into an apartment in Manhattan on 65th Street, which was a double duplex graystone, which now is a museum that is owned by Hunter College. And it had no locks and the doors going in and out, so her mother-in-law could always be spying. Then they lived in Springwood, her mother-in-law's home. So it was really Val Kill that was her first real, actual home. So as we approach the property and we come to the beautiful stone cottage, and here we are at what became her residence. But first, this was a furniture factory. So as I said, in 1926, Eleanor, her friends Marion and Nancy, and another woman, Caroline O'Day, opened up Val Kill Industries. And here their purpose was to help out-of-work farmers in the off-season and teach them a skill so that they could earn money in the winter months. And as I said, they produced high-quality colonial reproduction furniture. But after the factory closed, Eleanor renovated the factory and made this her Val Kill cottage. 20 rooms, 7 bedrooms, a few sleeping porches. She loved the upstairs. Here's the property, including a tennis court, gardens, a pool, a playhouse, the stone cottage, and stables. She loved to ride. Tennis courts. Here's a little aerial view of it. And I think we put out some things on the back table so you'll be able to look at that afterwards. Here she is swimming. Her garden, which I hope will be a little bit in bloom when I get there in a few weeks. And the upstairs sleeping porch, where she loved to sleep 3 seasons out of the year. And here she is with Fowler, who became her dog when Franklin died, and she took them every day on a 1-mile walk up to Top Cottage. Top Cottage being the place where Franklin would have meetings with friends and the like. Some of the bedrooms, and she always had company. 22 grandchildren and 15 great-grandchildren. She always had people visiting. And she also, once a year, would host a picnic for 150 underprivileged youth from Manhattan, from a a school called the Whitwick School. And here's the front door at the back of the house. So this is where I was telling you that I wanted to invite you in. And when you go on a tour of Valkill, this is where they bring you in. And the door is stained glass by C.J. Wood, who did the Trinity Church in New York. And through this door, many important people came. Even Khrushchev, even Winston Churchill visited her at Valkill. When you first come in, you are come into what was an apartment of her beloved assistant Tommy Malvina Thompson. After that became her office and a place where you would probably have cocktails before you went into dinner. So as we get close to her desk, I try to recreate her desk a little up there, and you can see there's something wrong on the desk. Anyone? Her name's misspelled. So when Eleanor Roosevelt was a teacher in New York, when she was younger, one of her students made her this plaque for her desk and spelled her name wrong, and she didn't have the heart to correct it. So music would always be playing, and that's why I had some music for you. I hope you enjoyed it. And as we go into her living room, we will notice, and I tried to recreate a little of it here, that nothing matches. Eleanor believed that she had friends in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And as a result, her house is reflected in this style.
Awesome.
So, you can also see all of the little tables with cloths. So I was really being truthful when I said, I hope you don't mind being served in the dining room and buffet in the dining room and coming into the living room and having a little bit of food in the living room, even where Senator Kennedy at the time sat over here in this blue chair while she counseled him on whether or not he should run for president. And you might notice on the table is her applewood china. Very simple. So of course when she was a first lady, she had the regular White House china. But this is her Franciscan ware applewood. And the house is filled with photographs of family and friends. And a little secret that they tell you on the tour. You see this little curtain over here? Well, behind that curtain is a picture of a mother-in-law. And when Kent Company came, she would move the curtain so that you could see the picture, and then she would move that.
That's right.
So you would be served buffet style in the dining room, and I want you to take a look over here at the kitchen. So when I came out of that room there, I was coming out of the kitchen, and the kitchen is so tiny. And Eleanor had a lot of trouble keeping cooks. One of the reasons was about the kitchen. The other was, and this is how with Marge, Eleanor would leave in the morning, say to the staff, in this case it's Marge, we will be having 10 for dinner. And along the way, on her way home, she would pick up more friends along the way, and it would go till 30. So she had a lot of trouble keeping cooks.
Wow.
She was also a terrible cook. And if you came on any other day, but if you came on Thursday when the cook was out, you would get it. That was the only thing Eleanor knew how to cook. She didn't claim to be a good cook or a good mother. Here's the buffet table all set up, and of course you were privy to one of her favorite desserts that would have been served at the White House. In fact, she served it to Amelia Earhart when she came to the White House, so I like to just suggest that to people when they have me come to do the talk. Angels on Pink Clouds. And I talked a little bit about my day, and read a little bit from my day. And Eleanor Roosevelt at 78 years old, and at that point, she was only having one column a week, but before that, it was 2. And it read thousands and thousands of articles over many, many years, syndicated by hundreds and hundreds of newspapers. And so, here she is, busy at work, and you can see her typewriters down in the presidential library, a little political cartoon. And what's so interesting is you can see something like this with someone with a laptop. You'd never think about one of these real heavy typewriters in bed with her. And here's some of her books. She loved to read. She loved the library. She was such an advocate of public libraries. So, Eleanor Roosevelt at the National Historic Site. Val Kill, in 1978, President Jimmy Carter dedicated the Val Kill to become the first and only national park dedicated to a First Lady. And a few weeks ago, I went to a talk at the Kennedy Library, and it was the man who was the White House Chief of Staff and advisor to President Carter. And so I went up to the microphone and I said, you know, as you of course know, Jimmy Carter dedicated this site as a national park, and I'm wondering why Eleanor, why? And his answer to me was, and I loved it, Rosalind, who was a very shy woman, very much like Eleanor when she was young, followed Eleanor Roosevelt as a mentor. She was a mentor to her, and she really, really admired Eleanor Roosevelt. And so it was, and then of course when Rosalind Carter got into the White House and became First Lady, much like Eleanor, she began to blossom and do so much, and is continuing to. So she was the one who suggested to her husband to make this a national park. So in 1962, we lost Eleanor Roosevelt at 78 years old. She's buried up at Springwood in the middle of a beautiful rose garden with Fowler and Franklin. And the rose garden has over 105 varieties of roses. When Eleanor died, they found 42 items in her wallet. And when they say, what's in your wallet? This is a really good example of finding out a lot more about a person by what they have in their wallet. So, I won't bore you with 42 things, but I'll show you a few. Of course, her United Press International card for the United Nations, Press Club of New York. She was really an honest newswoman. Great advocate of women in business, the arts, as I said to you before. And she was a really religious woman. She carried her St. Christopher medal and religious poems, and that's why she has a Diners Club card, etc. But you notice it says Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt. So interesting how things have changed. So she, a few of the favorite things that I like to show you are her operator's license, and I actually thought a little bit about this today as this big piece of steel went underneath my car, and I went swerving, and then I said, it reminded me of my little story I tell about Eleanor Roosevelt. She was a terrible driver. And when she, after she lost Franklin and she was on the Taconic Parkway, I think she was about 61 then, she got into a terrible accident and her front teeth were knocked out. And she had to get new front teeth. So you know that one of her signatures was her front teeth. So this way she had to set front teeth. So, religious prayer. And my favorite thing that was in her wallet was her license to pack a pistol. Some things we don't know about Eleanor Roosevelt, but she was a great shot, and she learned very young from her bodyguard, Earl Gardner, how to shoot a gun. So today is the oldest you've ever been, and the youngest you'll be again. A nice quote from her. And if Eleanor was here with us today, this is how this program would probably end. March, it is still snowing out. I think we're probably up to 15 inches. And I don't think any of these people are going anywhere. So I would appreciate it if you could go in the kitchen and check whether we have brandy and plenty of eggs, because we're gonna have some overnight guests. Now, I think there were a couple of friends in the audience who live in the area, correct? I know you have a few extra rooms. If we could get there, do you think a few of my family members might be able to stay with
Very
you?
much.
Okay, and any other neighbors, I would so much appreciate if you could have them stay. And we will get the brandy out and some other after dinner drinks. I'm sure we'll all need them. So, I am very happy to come to any organization that you have, because I'll say anything I can think of, Eleanor Roosevelt's involved. So League of Women Voters, Army, Navy, Marines, Junior League, business women. So I'm going to have some cards out if you want to get in touch with me. I also have a Facebook page that's Evening with Eleanor Roosevelt. And I update it with all kinds of little things, and including